In this video, I'm going to show you how to do a lovely Valentine's Day art journal page using Art Anthology Products. Here I have my art journal. I have put a piece of deli paper under it to protect my page below, and I'm just going to begin by coating it with some gesso. I am using Liquitex Basics gesso, but any gesso you have is fine. The gesso will help prevent the paper from absorbing all of your paint, so you use less paint in your project. So I'm going ahead and giving this a quick coat of gesso, and then I'm going to set it aside to dry. While that is drying, I'm going to grab a piece of cardstock that I'm going to use to make my heart, and also a tag that I'm going to decorate to go on my journal page. I am going to give both of these a coat of gesso also and set those aside to dry. So just as before, I'm just painting on that white gesso, doing the same with my tag. So you need a tad bit more here, and then I will set these aside to dry also. You can use a heat gun if you like, or a hair dryer, or put it under a fan to get it to dry quicker. Once that gesso is dry, I am going to use my Art Anthology stencil called Cracked, just to add some crackles around the page. I will be using it with some texture paste by Liquitex. I'm just scooping some out. I'm actually just going to put it right there on my mat, and then I'm going to go ahead and drag that through my stencil like that. If you don't want your stencil to move, you can stick it down with some masking tape. I'm going to lift that up, and we have our lovely crackles there, and I'm going to add some more down here. I'm going to put this in a bowl of water to soak, just to get that texture paste off before it dries hard, because that will affect your stencil. In this project, I'm going to be using Velvet Dimensional Medium. I have Cotton, Cranapple, and Tuxedo. I am going to begin with the Tuxedo Velvet paint, and just add in a layer to my cardstock using a knife, a palette knife. I'm not too bothered about it being covered completely, because I will be cutting a heart out of this. What I'm more interested in is the different textures that this paint leaves. I'm just doing circular motions here, and you can see I'm getting a nice wavy texture with my palette knife. Once you're finished, you can set this aside to dry. While that is drying, I'm going to give the tag a coat of the Cranapple velvet paint. Now, even though it's a dimensional medium, you can use it just like you would paint. I do like the brush strokes though, and I am going to leave some in it. I'm not going to try get it smooth. That's one of the things I like most about this paint, is that it just leaves all the texture there on your piece. So I'm going to let that dry now. For this next section, I'm going to use this stencil, which is called Dottie by Art Anthology, and I'm going to place it over my cardstock. I do not want the stencil to move at all for this, so I'm going to just use some tape. I'm going to put some tape behind my cardstock also, because I'm trying to get perfect little circles and I don't want anything to move. So I'm going to tape it one side and also on the other side. And make sure it is flush with your work surface. I'm then going to grab my cotton. I'm just going to put it right there at the top. I'm going to use that old key that I used before, old room key, and just drag that down. I'm not going up and down because I don't want the paint to go under the stencil. And then I'm going to remove my tape and lift that up. And that looks very, very nice. So I'm going to put this to dry and clean up my work surface. As you can see, everything gets thoroughly dirty. My texture paste is now dry, so I am going to spray my journal page with some Art Anthology spray inks. I have Salmon and Plush here. And this is straightforward. You just go ahead and spray. If your nozzle gets clogged, just take this off and put it in some warm water. Let it soak for 10 minutes or so, and then it should be good. So I've gone and add splatters to that. If you want them to move around some more, you can just use a spray bottle and add some water, and they will move around some more and you'll get like a nice soft watercolor effect. You can also take off if you think it's too much just by getting a cloth or a paper towel and simply just placing it on there gently and dabbing like that. You can also use another journal page because this color could go on another page. If you want to give it a nice sheen, this is Gilded Gold. And you just kind of have to shake it side to side. Don't shake it up and down because you don't want the pigment to get stuck and block up your nozzle. So shake it side to side and then you can just go over it like that. It doesn't really show on camera, but it does show under light and it gives it a nice kind of glittery effect. So I'm going to add a few more. Once you're happy with how that page looks, you can go ahead and set that aside to dry. I'm just adding more purple at the bottom here. And I'm just using my finger to blend it in. You're going to end up with very messy hands with this project. But I think you will be happy with the results. So that's my simple background for my journal page. I'm going to set this aside to dry and then we can move back on to our heart and tag. While my cardstock is drying, I'm going to grab a piece of cardstock here and I'm just going to stamp the word cherish because I want to add that to my tag. I have here my letters. I'm going to go ahead and stamp the word cherish. I'm using the top of my paper as a guide, but I am not too bothered about them being lined up perfectly. There we go. I'm gonna let that dry for a minute and then grab my scissors and just cut that out. So now this is dry, I'm going to flip it over and I'm just going to draw a heart. You don't have to do this. If you want to go ahead and just cut freehand, that's fine. Depends how good you are at cutting out things. I'm not quite sure what size heart I want just yet, but I definitely think that one is too big. So I'm just going to go around again. And let me just cut that out. Then we can take it from there to see if it's an okay size. And that's an okay size. If you like it like that, or it could make it a bit smaller. You just have to work it out. I think it'd be a tad bit smaller, so I'm just going to go ahead and go around it one more time. And I think we're good with that size. So this is going to go on my heart here. This can either go there or there. We can decide that when we're putting it all together. I'm still waiting on that journal page to dry, so I'm going to go ahead and put this together. I have 2 pieces of ribbon here, about 6 inches long. And I'm going to go ahead and add these ribbons to my tag here. I'm just pulling them through like this, making a little loop, and then pushing it back through. And then tightening. Then I'm just going to trim the ends of my ribbon just to get rid of those frays. And now I'm ready to stick that down into my journal page. But before I do that, let me grab some embellishment glue and stick this on here. I'm actually going to leave it hanging off a bit like that. And then I'm going to decide whether to put the word cherish here or here. I think I prefer it halfway through, so let's go ahead and add some glue here as well and put that there. And my tag is ready. I'm going to add it to my journal page, but I'm actually going to stick it on that. So let me grab my art journal now and we can put everything together. Here's my journal page. If you look closely, you can see the gold shimmer mist that we added in certain spots. So what I want to do is add this here, but before I do that, I want to put it on this piece of cardboard, and I'm going to break that up with some cheesecloth. You could use lace as well. I just happen to have cheesecloth handy, and I'm going to stick that all down in my journal page like this. So to do that, I actually prefer to use a gel medium. I'm not bothered if it's gloss or matte for this because I'm just using it as glue and I'm not going over it, so either is fine. I'm going to begin with deciding where I'm placing my cardboard. So I think right there is good. So I'm going to coat it with my gel medium and put that in place. The next thing I'm going to do is just put some medium on top of this because I'm going to stick this down next. So I want this to stick down in that medium. I'm just moving it around till I'm happy with the placement. And I think that's good. So I'm going to go ahead and add some hair and under hair for that cheesecloth to stick down. And then finally I will go ahead and add this. I'm giving it a generous coat because I want it to stick everywhere. And I'm going to place that in my art journal and push that down just to make sure it's stuck. And that pretty much finishes up this journal page. I'm going to set this aside to dry. And if you like, I think I might go ahead and just add a little bit more of the gold mist around it. I don't want that to get too much on it though, so I'm just giving it a good shake and going around. And undo the same hair, but I don't want it to soak up the mist there, so I'm just holding this up for this side. Or if you actually want to get it on here, you can go ahead. That will actually be nice also. I think my nozzle needs cleaning. And now I'm going to set this aside to dry. And our art journal page is done.